Welcome to the Powerful One podcast with your host, Tommy Parker. This college dropout turned entrepreneur and high-performance coach created Powerful One with the mission of sharing the stories of individuals who have divided from conformity and redefined success in their own terms. Join us as we dive into the incredible stories and journeys of becoming truly powerful.
Yo, welcome to the Powerful One podcast, everybody. Thank you guys for tuning in to episode 41 with Jake Tacher. Jake Tacher is a passionate individual who focuses his awareness on living the most honest and aligned life he possibly can. Jake is currently living in Medellin, Colombia, but frequently travels the world in pursuit of the best experiences this life has to offer. And in this episode, we talk about the way Jake grew up, breaking the chains of conformity, trying new things, enjoying the journey. We talk a lot about gratitude and living in the present moment. We talk about escaping comparison. He talks about open-mindedness and judgment, as well as his love and compassion for helping others. And finally, his life advice for everybody and so much more. Here it is, guys, episode 41 with Jake Tacher. Powerful One podcast, guys. We are here with Jake Tacher. What is up, dude?
What's happening?
Man, me and Jake, we got connected, man, not too long ago, dude. And I was just, we were just jamming on a lot of stuff, man. So honored to have him on the podcast, honored to have a little glimpse into his journey. And, obviously still early on his journey. I'm excited to watch the trajectory and also get to know more, man, about, where you came from, brother, and for the listeners, man. So, yeah, brother. And actually, you tell everybody where you're tuning in from, man.
I am in Medellin, Colombia, down in South America. Spell it with two O's. If you spell it with a U, they are highly offended, just so you know.
I love it, man. No, that's awesome, dude. And I just appreciate you, man, making the time for this. But brother, let's start, man, just with your journey, man. And we'll get to, where you are now and what you're up to now. But, I'm always fascinated and curious by the journey, who is Jake Tacher and where did he come from, man, the evolution. So just kind of start me, man, wherever you think's a good spot, man. Start me, at your childhood, and we can kind of roll on from there, brother.
Funny enough, I had 4 concussions my freshman year of high school and lost a lot of memories. So anything prior to that is like pretty fuzzy, but I remember what I've been told about it. But I was raised, I guess probably the most significant thing about my childhood is I was raised in a Christian church that was pretty hands-on, pretty structured. I would say those are probably some of the more defining characteristics as that church stood apart from other churches. It's definitely Christian. And that structure shaped a lot of my life. It was something that you kind of had to fit into. There were things that you could disagree on or be different on, but there was a pretty clear mold that was set by the generation or two before us. And so I spent most of my life in that church up till about age 26, when I finally left it. So it was an interesting way to grow up. It felt really unique until I left and met a lot of other people that were like, oh, that's just kind of like my experience. And I was like, oh, I'm not that unique or that weird, actually.
Yeah, man, I related to that a lot. There was a lot of stuff that I always thought was weirder from my end. And then I realized as I kind of broadened my spectrum, you grow up in kind of a little bit of a bubble to some extent. And I think kind of realizing that a lot of people actually had it similar, or maybe some differences you didn't thought were there are actually more common than you think. So yeah, man, branching off that. So talk a little bit more about that experience and just, obviously how it was back then and how it is now is very different. So just kind of the in-between, man, aspect of getting out of that, being, raised in that aspect and everything like that.
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned that as you leave, you realize how many other people's situations and upbringings are similar or adjacent. I think I really realized how common human societal structures and organizations are when I left. And I saw a lot of similarities within my church, not just with other churches, but with political organized groups, other small communities like the entrepreneurship community or the art community or whatever. There's some unwritten rules in all of those communities that people essentially just subscribe to in like the same way that I felt like was happening in my church. And it actually helped me not be as angry with my church while I was in it. I was able to work that out as I was leaving, because one of my big goals was, if I'm going to leave this church, which In our church, it kind of has some undertones of we're really kind of the only church. No one would really explicitly say that. Maybe a few people would. Amongst my generation, just about nobody would explicitly say that, but it definitely is lingering through the culture a little bit, the subset culture. And so leaving that church is a big deal. It's a big deal. And so as I was thinking, am I going to leave this, which came through lots of questions, lots of research, lots of philosophical, kind of tearing apart and deconstruction. That's the weird churchy word that we use, but deconstruction of, do I need to be correct in my belief set? Is correct or right? Is that the objective? Which I was starting to think, no, it's not. And that makes no sense that I would ever think that. Besides, obviously, that's how I was raised. I really wanted to leave on the relational side without any sort of damage, which was uncommon, I would probably say, for people who typically leave because they leave bitter or angry or frustrated. But I got to the point before I left where I was able to look at the way I was raised, and rather than say I missed out on so much, because fun fact, I never had sex until I was 26. I never got drunk until I was 26. It was very late in life. I missed the whole college, wild, fun party thing. And I'm a pretty explorative, adventurous person, something I discovered later on in life.
Right.
And so I like to learn by experience. Like, that's my favorite way to learn something. High highs, low lows for sure. But I had to get to a place where I didn't feel like I had missed out on something. Rather, I'm so grateful to be where I am right now. And I don't know. I mean, could I have gotten to this place through a different path? Like, that's the wrong question. The present truth is I'm here, and I got here via this path. And so let me just be grateful for that. Positives and negatives, like traumas that I'm overcoming and skill sets and characteristics that I have that most of the world does not, like both and. And so that was huge and instrumental for me as I left. And the funny thing is, it was such a built up moment, me leaving, me deciding, me having that conversation. And then once it happened, it was like not a big deal, which I did not anticipate at all because it's such a built up thing. I think it's very common for us in any decisions we make, right? The anxiety of making the hard choice or having the hard conversation is usually 10 to 100 times worse than the actual event is. And the conversation was good. I felt very respected, very heard, very understood. And then it was done. And I was like, what's next? I felt like I got to fully choose for the first time what I believed at a whole kind of wholesale view, and what direction I wanted to live my life in, and how do I want to make my decisions? Is it through analyzation and kind of trying to do a cost benefit of analysis of every decision I make? Or is it just kind of jump in? And I've been so far swung to this side of the pendulum that I kind of wanted to swing to that side of the pendulum. But my internal programming was pretty resistant to that, even though I pretty much did it anyways. And so it was a big deal, man. It was a really big deal. If to no one else, to like everything, my whole past, my whole ego, my whole person. And it happened at a much later time than most. Most people say, oh yeah, they kind of formate their opinions and worldview in college because that's when they first get a big shakeup. It happened much later in life for me, which I don't know anything about neuroscience, but that's got to mean something. It's got to mean something.
Yeah. Well, dude, it's so interesting, man, because as you're saying that, you're so right. There's like these unwritten conformity rules of like, growing up, like religion, politics, entrepreneurship, whatever it is. There's these unwritten things that you kind of subscribe to by, association of however you grew up. And it's so seldom. And that's why, the whole notion of powerful one, like dividing yourself to find yourself, stepping out of those beliefs and really like checking that conditioning and being like, is this really what I believe, is so powerful? Because without it, man, you're really living somebody else's life for you. So I just admire so much people being able to step outside of that because, there is these unwritten rules, man. And the sad part is, even though you mentioned that, 26 being a little bit later there, the truth of the matter is some people still, are always under the constraints of those initial beliefs that were handed down to them from, that conformity, man. So, it is admirable, man, and taking a step in that freedom and really, gaining your power back, man. So talk about that first experience, man, at 26, feeling like you got a late jump on it, but also understanding that at least understanding right now that everything that happened, man, kind of happened to make you where you are. Talk about what that was like, man, because you got your power back essentially, man. You basically have, like you said, the pendulum's now kind of swinging the other direction. So talk a little bit more about that experience, man. It's fascinating stuff.
Yeah, well, the primary area of my life where I felt like I wanted to explore and figure things out was dating, because there was a very interesting, unique dating culture within the church and the collective of churches I was in. I don't need to get into the details of it, but I essentially never had asked a girl on a date in the way where I really had to put myself out there in any sort of vulnerable situation. And I had two girlfriends. That's like kind of hard to explain, so I won't go into the weeds on that. So I remember being like, I'm 26 and I don't really know how this works in the real world. I don't even know how this works for other churches, because we were that like kind of niche in how we dated in our church. And so I remember not knowing what the rules were. I had been very suppressed sexually, and taught, a lot of things morally about sexuality. And that's, I think, for each person to decide, but without the variable of actual like hormones and biology. And I happen to be a very sexual person. It's just like there, more than like some of my counterparts who had an easier time, with purity, obviously is what it was called in the church. And so I really wanted to figure that out. And there was so much shame and there was so much fear. And I felt so embarrassed. I mean, I remember going on dates on Tinder as a 26-year-old, and like things would start to heat up and I would stop the girl and tell them like, hey, I've never had sex before and I don't want to. And literally they thought I was lying to get them to have sex with me. I was like, is that a play guys are making? Because I feel very weird sharing that with you and like very vulnerable. And I guess dudes are out here just saying whatever. But it was actually a really good place to first kind of dive into is dating, because communication in dating is atrocious. It didn't take longer than 2 months for me to figure out, oh, there are no rules. Everyone has a different idea. They come in with their own expectations. They don't communicate them. They're shaped so heavily by their past experiences that they don't work through, and they project blame. And it was a lot of shit. And so I was able to kind of walk into that world and be like, oh, I know how to treat people really well. One thing that I gained from my church was I was very good at being honest and very communicative. I had high communication skills because we were extremely relational and gut level honest in that church. Two things that I really, really benefit from having grown up there. And so I walked into the dating world like that, scared. Again, high highs, low lows, had to figure out nuance and subtleties and tact and what was loving tact, rather than just blurting out every detail of everything I thought or believed in any given moment. But I started learning to navigate that and realized I think I'm literally, after 6 months of being intentional, I think I'm literally probably better than 80 guys, 80% of guys, not 80 total, hopefully more than that. 80% of guys out there at communicating and dating. And I wasn't that good even after those 3 months. It took me probably a couple of years to get to where I feel like very comfortable now about communicating expectations and not allowing someone else's junk to project onto me. And I grew this huge distrust for women and essentially this hate for my own masculinity, and had to work through that with a therapist actually who was a female. It was really healing for me. So yeah, there was nuance and ups and downs and fear and mistakes, and I hurt people and I allowed myself to be hurt too much by people. But I think that's the best parallel that I can think of, because I dove in. I had no idea what the rules were, what everyone was doing, realized no one does, and everyone just gets to choose for themselves. And that's kind of what life is, in my opinion. Because like you said, very few people will step outside of whatever mold or structure they have chosen. And usually when they do, they just hop right into another one, which is allowed, by the way. I'm not saying that's bad. And I think that's an important distinction to make. Jump into a mold that you think fits or that you like. It's just important to have perspective that is not the way, which a lot of people say out loud, but truly don't live. And they absolutely judge other people with one side of their mouth, and then with the other side of their mouth say, you can choose whatever you want in life, be your own person. I'm not someone that's judging. So yeah, it was a wild, dude. The first year or two was just wild. Not like I was doing a bunch of wild things, but my emotions were all over the place, and I was fighting all this programming. I felt so much shame, and my mentally was somewhere, but emotionally not there yet. And it was intense, man.
Intense. It's really a wild thing when you think about it. It's almost like the chains were just let go, and it's just like you had free reign. It's almost like you get let out of like prison essentially. And I don't want to compare it to prison because it's not. I'm just saying like metaphorically, it's like, well, what do I do? I've known this for so long. And then you just kind of have free reign to, like you said, have those ups and downs, try this different stuff.
Yeah.
And to your point, man, I think that does get said a lot. I think that a lot of people will say, like you were saying about, jumping from one thing to another. But, in my eyes, the way I see it is being able to make that decision for yourself. I respect so much more is anytime you do challenge a belief, even if you jump into a different belief that's something that's very set in structure, at least you're having that kind of notion to challenge that belief and go into something else rather than just taking that belief or whatever that thought is and just running with it as the word of God, for lack of a better term, your whole life.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's huge. And I don't necessarily think I was in prison. I feel like I was like, what are the gates where all the like farm animals hang out? They're in the like thing. What is that called?
Like a pen or like a
pen. Yeah. I feel like I was just in a pen where a lot of people liked hanging out in the pen. And actually a lot of people didn't like that pen. They just thought that none of the other pens were good. And so I just decided to hop out of that pen, and I don't judge anyone that likes that pen. Like, I think the more important thing is realize like there are other pens and it's okay. And if I want to hop back into that pen, it should be okay too. Like I'm constantly learning, constantly changing my mind. And we see like changing our mind or being wrong as weakness now. The notion where people are like, oh, you've changed, and that's supposed to be a negative thing. I'm like, yeah, I've changed. Are you not changing? Like, is that not something you're doing like a lot and all the time? Because it's almost like aggressive how much I'm changing, maybe too much. I don't even know. I try not to judge it. It just kind of is what it is, a lot or a little. But yeah, I like to hop around from pen to pen, like hourly almost. It's like too much, maybe some people would say, but it's how I like to live. So
I love it, man. I want to talk more about that, kind of jumping around, trying all these different things and where that's kind of led you to. What are some of those things you've tried where they've maybe really stuck, or what have you learned more about yourself and about this kind of journey of life in doing that, in kind of, always trying these different things and always putting yourself in these positions? What's been some of those experiences, or what's been some of the main things you've been able to really take away from all those experiences?
yeah, I mean, I've tried things from random side hustles and work to starting my own company. I don't even know if I believe I'm truly an entrepreneur, like at heart, but I really wanted to learn the entrepreneur life. I'm enjoying, my company's doing pretty well. So that's cool. Trying that out, that's had a lot of high highs and low lows. Like I quit my job in the middle of a pandemic, and it was one of those companies that was doing really well because of the pandemic, but I just knew that I needed something else. That's more, I would say it's a lot scarier to jump out of the pen, not knowing what the next pen is that you're going to, than it is to jump into a new pen. Because when you jump into a new pen, you're like, oh, I can always jump out. Or at least for me, that's what I think. But when I jump out of a pen I'm already in, I'm like, I don't even know where I'm going. But I also simultaneously know I probably can't know where I'm going until I hop out. Like maybe I know kind of the direction I plan on going in, but rarely do I hop from a pen to a pen. I like this analogy. Like rarely do I hop from my hopping two fences, And so I think the biggest lessons I've learned are you can always change your mind. It's okay to want what you want, like literally the actual thing you want, you can want that. Even though that guru, that mentor, that person that's done what you want to do said you have to do it a certain way to get there. No, you don't. Because think about the first person that did that. Well, they didn't go the same way that someone else did. They picked their own way. So of course you can pick your own way. It's kind of hard. It's scary. You definitely will have naysayers. It's really important to have people around you that don't speak into your life the way that they would live, but they speak into your life the way they know that you want to live. And I'm very lucky to have people like that in my life. My best friend and I, his name's Donnie. We live life very differently. We were actually both in that church, both out of it now. When I go to Donnie for advice, Donnie doesn't advise Jake on what Donnie would do in that situation. Donnie reminds Jake of who Jake is, how Jake wants to live his life, and how Jake probably would handle that situation. It's very, very different. It's really hard to find people like that because people are afraid of you changing and what that means for them. People are threatened. People have their own stuff going on. But if you can find that's like the most valuable thing, and then you have at least an anchor while you're making all these other decisions that is beyond yourself, which is very, very helpful to have. Very hard to find.
Yeah, that's incredible, man. I was going to ask you, some of those ways that it's been for you. Because if you look at, let's take, your example, somebody who's kind of jumped around and tried all these things, hop from pen to pen. And we're rolling with that example at this point, hop these different fences, go these different pens. Like, most people you look at, it's a complete opposite. So for somebody, like, let's just say, objectively, if you're giving advice to people that on the surface, and like you said, it's a hard thing, but what is something that helps you be able to do that? And what's something you could give to advice to people that are just kind of stuck in that pen and don't really want it, but don't know what the next pen has to offer, that uncertainty? What advice has really worked for you, or what have you really taken from that? And what advice could you then give to people to kind of help them out, to be able to experience some of those different opportunities and experiences?
Yeah. I think the hardest lesson that I've learned, one of the most valuable ones, is you have to learn how to enjoy the journey. And it sounds like the biggest load of BS ever, because like, I don't want to make the burrito. I just want to eat the burrito. But it takes way longer to make the burrito than it does to eat the burrito. So if you don't learn how to enjoy making the burrito, 80% of your life's going to suck, right? Like, if you can't learn to enjoy hiking up the mountain, like, that's 80% of the hike. The mountain view top is like, great, it's worth it, it was awesome, you're going to enjoy that for sure, but you have to learn to enjoy whatever process you're in to some degree, and to get little things out of it. And so why that's important is because when you hop out of the pen, if you can't be like, wow, now I get to just explore what I want. Yeah, that's scary. Yeah, there's going to be pain, but how cool is this? You're just going to hop back in probably, or hop into the next one you find. But if you can start your day, or start your journey even, grateful that you have that freedom in your life, it's going to be all good. Like, when has it never not been all good? Like, yeah, there've been hard times. Yeah, things have shit's hit the fan. Like, yeah, there's been pain. Yeah, there's times you didn't think you were going to make it out, but you did. Every time, probably. Probably every time, And so if you can focus on that, and think about how hard it is to stay in that pen you don't want to be in. Think about how heavy that feels. Like, are you going to die by slowly, like, being poisoned day over day and allowing that to accumulate? Or are you going to go die because you accidentally fell off a cliff when you were, trying to find a pen or whatever? And dude, I actually have almost died off of a cliff. And yeah, I'm too risky when it comes to some things, but I'm kind of like okay with it. Most people wouldn't be, and that's, maybe I even shouldn't be on that. But I would say my biggest advice is to really adapt that mindset that I have no expectation of where I go. I just want to find something that's right. And the journey of finding something that fits really well is going to be way more freaking awesome than my slow death here in this pen, because at least it's something I think I'll believe in. I actually believe in and want. And then if you can get the type of people around you, like I described earlier, it's going to help so much, because when you hop out of the pen, if you still, or now it's just going to have to get weird now, but if you still FaceTime everyone in the pen every day or whatever, they're just going to be trying to drag you back in for whatever reason. A lot of times it's actually with good intention. But you know what they say, hell is paved. The road to hell is paved with good intentions, Good intentions is amazing, but it's absolutely not everything. And so you got to get yourself around people who are cool with you actually being you, and want to see that more than they expect anything from you. Like, they get more joy from you being free and living the life that you want to live than they get from anything you ever do for them ever. I'm extremely lucky to have that in both of my parents and my siblings. And like, nobody has that from literally every immediate family member. I so happen to. I'm very, very privileged. I did not do anything for that. I was essentially born with that. It's progressed over the years, but every individual has on their own. And so that's a uniquely lucky thing that I do have that not everyone has. And that's just kind of how it is. And I'm very, very grateful. It's harder if you don't.
Man, there's some powerful stuff you said in there, man. Some really awesome stuff. And, I guess I'll touch on the last point, man. Like you said, like, finding people that are for you because they're for you. And I'll use kind of an example of that. So there's basically three types of friends, man. There's your comrades that are for you because you're for the same thing. So that could be, somebody, I know you like to rollerblade, right?
Love it.
So rollerblading. So like people who you rollerblade with, they're your comrades. They're for you because you both like rollerblading. And this is a thing that everybody can start to think about, which friends are comrades, constituents, and confidants. So your constituents, they're for you because of what you're for. So they're for you because you embody like roller skater. Like roller skaters are dope, man. They try a lot of different stuff. Like, you're a little bit of a daredevil. And then there's your confidants, man, which are your confidants that are for you because they're for you, man. So like finding those people, man, and holding them tight. And it sounds like you have a great support system. And that was awesome advice, man. So going off that, man, I know I hear you talk about gratitude a lot. So like, and just the idea of, while you kind of came into where you were at late, 26, call it late. And, you realize that everything kind of served you to where you are now. Where has gratitude or maybe some other things played a role in your life, man? It seems like that's something you really carry with you. Because I know gratitude for me, I have a tattoo that says give thanks, man. I see it every day. It's a very important thing for me. So talk a little bit about gratitude, man. It sounds like that's been a very big part of your journey and just kind of how you got there.
Yeah, I think because the polarization to gratitude is wanting, right? It's like the things you don't have, the things that you wish you had. There's a saying that that comparison is the thief of all joy. And I wholeheartedly believe that, not just comparing to other people, which we by the way, sometimes we actually compare ourselves to other people in an attempt to be grateful for what we have. Like, at least I have more than this very, very hungry person, or at least I have more than this other person. That's fleeting, dude. That's not real gratitude, by the way. That's just comparison. You're not grateful for what you have. You're grateful you don't have what they have.
Wow.
That's not going to stick. I guarantee you. Because what if that person someday has more than you? Or what if at some point you end up in their circumstance? You're going to it's a straw hat, or it's a straw house of gratitude. It's falling. I guarantee you. And it's a slippery slope, because then you're comparing what you used to have to what you currently have, or what you'll eventually hopefully have to what you currently have. And your gratitude is all centered in comparison, and you'll never be happy, or it'll just be fake happiness. And so once you realize the only thing that is real in this world is what you actually have, not what you wish you had, not what you used to have, not what you should have. If you could try to compare, like, this happens to me a lot. When I travel, I try and compare how good I feel in any given moment of travel to my favorite. I went on this 4-month trip abroad, and it was awesome, a bunch of different cities. And there was one month where it was just, everything was clicking. I felt amazing. Best month of my life, probably. And I've tried to recreate that every time I've traveled and been obviously not happy. I listen to the same songs. I do the same things, because that was that moment's happiness. And do you know why I was happy then? Because I was just there. I was just then.
Wow.
It just was now. And so if I can be grateful today for what I have today, that's all that's like fucking real. That's like the only thing that's real. And so then you're based in reality. You're based in the present moment. And if you really, really think about what you have and focus, even if it's just 2 things that you feel grateful for every day, or even if it starts to feel forced, you have to like teach yourself for that stuff to be genuine. Fake it till you make it is not a bad thing. That's just like, in what thing do you not train to be something you're not right now? Like, you're literally acquiring the skill set. Fake it till you make it is, you're just learning. That's all that is, just learning, just teaching, rewiring, teaching. And so if you can center your awareness on what you have, you're going to be in that present moment. You're going to feel all the good feelings and positive emotions that come alongside with how glad you are to have those things. And there's only so much capacity for energy. You can't then also carry the energy of anxiety or stress or fear or wanting. Now, obviously, there's no one's ever at 100%. I don't think. Maybe enlightenment is a thing, I guess, but I don't think I've ever been at 100%. Like, anxiety, fear, and stress always creeps in a little bit. But the more I focus on gratitude, it's like, oh man, it's great to be where I am right now. And like, what do I have? Quarantine was a big thing in that. People kept missing what they used to be able to do, which I heavily fell into, because a big part of where I lived, I didn't get to experience, and I just moved there and I spent all this money and all this stuff. And I was like, man, the whole reason why I moved here is in vain, because I wanted this and I was going to do this and I used to be able to do this. And it was like, okay, cool. What do I have right now? What's like awesome about my scenario right now? And I just focused on that, and then everything switched. And 2020 was actually an amazing year for me, despite all of the I'm a very empathetic person. I'm a 2 on the Enneagram. So all of the weight of the world I felt was heavy, but it's still 2020 is the best year I ever had. So probably because of that.
It's incredible, dude. It's so incredible, man. Yeah, that ability to adapt, man. I say this all the time, dude. I'm like, if 2020 wasn't your best year, you wasted it. You absolutely wasted it, man. Because there are so many opportunities to be able to adapt, to be able to find the things you're grateful for that you maybe weren't before, whether it's more free time, more family time. So I love that. I love to hear that, man. Because I think too many people, just chalk the year up to a waste, man. And we're like, try again next year. Nah, man.
Yeah.
If we're all about growth, which I know me and you are, man, that's not an excuse, bro. You got to adapt, man. You gotta be able to
Yeah.
live in the present.
And I just contradicted myself, and I realized it when you were saying it. So maybe 2020 is probably my best year, but at the same time, I'm really trying not to compare. I would like to say that, like, 2020 was what it was, and I'm grateful for what it was. That's a better way for me to phrase it, because, like, honestly, was it my best year? Like, maybe, probably, I don't know. 2019 was also pretty great. I tend to think every year of my life has, for the most part, gotten better.
Love that.
But I don't know. Maybe you don't feel like it was your best year, but maybe you can be grateful for what it had, and maybe you just don't need to compare 2020 to other years. Maybe you just take it for what it was and try and make that useful for who you want to be and who you are. It's probably the way I would rather try to approach it. As you can see, I'm really not into comparison. Like not my shit.
It's good, man, dude. There's so much, and even being able to get some perspective change by the way you're talking, and as we think about you right now, and being, let's use the pendulum example we used earlier. You started on this end, you kind of had swung to this end, man. So like, where are you falling right now in terms of where you're at with everything, where you're at with the beliefs, the rules, the way you look at life and your perspective? Like, where are you at now? And man, and what are you really excited about in your journey of life, and all these different, swings along the pendulum to where it's got you now?
Yeah. I would say the biggest swing of the pendulum for me was living a very structured life based on, analysis, essentially like constantly doing a cost benefit analysis of every decision I made before making it. And that's how I would make my decisions. And I swung heavily to I'm just going to dive in head first, see how it goes. If I really don't think I like it, I probably won't try it, but maybe I still will anyways, because I got to experience things 3 times in different scenarios before I say if I like it or not. And then maybe I'll still change my mind later. So like really free form to now where I'm kind of swaying back to where like I do like structure. And I don't think structure is inherently bad, obviously. Like if you don't have any amount of structure, it's just literal mass chaos. And I guess that's not necessarily bad either, but it's just hard for our brains and our beings to like grab onto anything, right? And build anything and create anything and be anything to anyone. And so obviously structure is not inherently bad. And I personally I do like structure. Like I'm type A. I have 1 folder on my desktop that opens to 4 more folders. I don't have apps everywhere on my iPhone. Like I'm pretty organized, structured dude. Time blocked before I ever was an entrepreneur or joined, we're in a mastermind of entrepreneur guys where time blocking is a popular thing. I just do that stuff like on autopilot. And so I'm kind of sliding back into a little bit more structure, but I don't, everyone's got a pendulum and wants to find their middle. I know I'm not in my middle yet, and I'm okay with it. I'm not like rushing back. I'm like inching back, and I've tried to become less of a man of extremes, for sure. Explorative by nature, curious by nature. Those are things I've always kind of had. I'm trying to figure out how that fits within a good structure, and that will be ever changing and ever evolving. And so belief, I think I was so heavily focused on what do I believe and how does it fit and where does it line up from like a theological standpoint or even a hermeneutical standpoint, as I obsessed over hermeneutics for a while, especially when I was like, why is there so much disagreement? Are we missing the point as postmodern Christians? And then I was like, man, these are all really stupid questions that miss the point. Like, what if I just went and tried to live the life that I feel like my moral belief system and what I believed even kind of before I left the church was a more of a moral will of God than an actual playbook. What if I just tried to live that way and didn't even attach it to anything, any religion? Maybe it's attached to faith, but I'm just not going to think about that. I'm just going to really try and intuitively follow that thing. And that honestly has led me pretty well. It's led me pretty well. And now I'm like, oh, but the community's not bad. structure is not bad, but I need to know that the structure is not the thing. The structure is supposed to help us with the thing. Yeah, which is hard for us as humans, because we grab onto the structure as if it is the thing. And then we can't have a good conversation about the structure or the organization or the different ways to do things. We just yell at each other and get mad. And I hate that. I can see almost anything from both sides, like not everything, but like a lot of things, which, yeah, I know like maybe like 20 people that are like that. And I know a lot of people. It's like a small percentage, people are just pretty mad and angry and yell rather than listen and try and open their mind. And so I'm cool with structure, but yeah, I'm slowly easing back into where I think my middle is. And I'm just turned 30. So
Yeah,
I'm still okay to like make a stupid decision. And if that ends up being the end of it, like I'm saying it for all of y'all, I'm cool if it goes down like that. Like I wasn't mad or sad. Be happy for me. It's all good.
yeah, dude,
I
I
lived
love
risky.
that, man, bro. And as you talk about that, man, it is very hard to find, whether people say they're open-minded or not. I mean, finding people who are truly open-minded, where they can really understand this lens and kind of see them objectively and be able to really understand, right? I think is such a powerful thing. So talk more about that, man. Just where, and I guess it's from, swing along the pendulum, trying this is where you become open-minded. But just talk a little bit more about that open-mindedness, man. It's just such a rare thing and something that's so needed right now. Like you said, we always want to pick a structure, pick a side, be so pulverized, this or this, red or blue, right? And so, talk about your open-mindedness, man. It's just such a fascinating thing that, like you said, not enough people really have that open-mindedness.
Well, I'll ask this question to the audience that probably is thinking, oh, I'm pretty open-minded too. Well, let me ask you this. When you're approached with something that you fundamentally disagree with, or at least you think you do you approach that with curiosity, or are you immediately arguing with their points? If you're immediately arguing because you don't think it makes sense, you're probably not open-minded, which I'm not even going to tell you that that's bad. Just own it. Just literally just own it. That's okay. Like you can't be open-minded about everything all the time. That's too much chaos. Again, you need more structure than that in your life to function. And there's got to be a window. There's can't be like one specific point of like more structure, less structure. There's obviously like some sort of window and spectrum that we can choose to live on. I just hope you're choosing to live on that part of the spectrum. I hope you don't just fall into it. And so for me, having grown up in a religion where we always were kind of trying to convert other religions to our religion, and then I started asking, wait, like 95% of the people in the religion I'm in wouldn't really even know from a logic perspective, which is why we try and argue people in our religion, essentially from, a theology or hermeneutic perspective, they wouldn't even really know why ours is quote unquote right and theirs is quote unquote wrong. That's probably what it's like for the other people. I was like, so what, hold on a second. And that like took me down a pretty big rabbit hole of questions like, oh man, like just most people are just kind of doing it the way they're doing it. And I was like, is that bad? I was like, I don't even know if that's bad, but that's not how I want it to be for me. Having, awakened to that thought, I was like, well, let's go play with it. Like not just from a religious standpoint, almost exclusively everything but from a religious standpoint, because I had done that for so much of my life. But what do I like? What fits? What doesn't? And can I really choose a way of life or a way of being, see someone else doing it a different way and really, really actually not judge them? Like for real. Because we'll be like, oh, they can do it however they want. But, in your mind, you're like, really like, but this is better. Right. Can I actually approach a different way without thinking it's better? Like for real. And that's so hard to do, man. Like for me too, where I'm like, oh, they're just closed-minded and just plugged in the machine, dude. I'm like, wait, hold on a second. I was for a long time. Was that bad? No, it wasn't bad. It just wasn't for me. But I know a lot of people, like when I left the church, a lot of people defended why they were still in it. But I had one friend who was like, oh yeah, all those reasons why you left, it's like why I like it. I was like, dope, and you're in the right place. Like not even like in a sarcastic way, just like cool. And that person knows that it's not the only way. And so it's like, dude, that's all you can ask.
Right.
So, but most people just don't approach that, and they're dug in. This politically, it's like so polarized right now, right? But there's when's the last time you heard anybody extend curiosity to the other side, to the opposing side? And I mean sincere curiosity. Like like I have a couple people in my close friend group who are really like this. And I know that there is a curious, sincere moderate that's not like fake moderate or whatever, because that's like a thing. It's just stupid rare. It's like unfortunately rare. And the more we chastise people for being wrong or for being different, the harder it is to be curious or open-minded, because you don't know already, or dude, you haven't read this or you haven't researched this. It's like, maybe I have, maybe I haven't, man. Shoot, dude. Like, maybe I just don't think that matters as much as you do. And I think that's the thing we have the hardest time being open-minded about, deciding what matters and what doesn't. Because everyone thinks it's okay to be open-minded on things that don't matter that much. But if someone really believes it matters a lot, they don't think it's okay to disagree. But we disagree on what those things are. And that's probably the biggest, catch-22 right there. It's like, shoot, if we can't agree on that and we don't think it's okay to disagree on that, how are we going to do this? And I would say probably most of postmodern Western cultures not figure that out.
Man, it's such a fascinating thing. And I think we use two very polarizing examples, like, church and politics. I think everybody can kind of relate to those, especially politics, in the sense of having that open-mindedness is so rare, and like asking that question. I'm curious, being that we're both kind of, whether we're entrepreneurs or not, in the entrepreneur space and around a lot of entrepreneurs, what's your take on the entrepreneur stuff that's kind of the entrepreneur conformity that you don't necessarily, I don't know if agree with is the right word, but did you maybe take a different perspective on or understand a different perspective?
Yeah, man. It's actually been really funny because I went to art school for college. I went to art school for music, which I don't know if there's an exact opposite of being like in an entrepreneurship community, but it kind of feels like it. Because people there, the whole goal is just to express. Doesn't matter how big the thing gets, doesn't matter how much money it makes you. Obviously, you want those things too, but you're just trying to create and express. And you're not necessarily listening to the feedback of what the quote unquote market wants, because that's not the purpose for the most part. And so, which is like the opposite of building a business. It's like, we need to solve an actual problem that there's a need to, so that this thing can go. But I would say the same fundamental thing I found in both scenarios, which is you can't want it the way that you actually want it, like we spoke to earlier. And so how I found that in entrepreneurship is, like, why aren't you trying to build the biggest thing in the whole world, basically? Like, why isn't your goal just the biggest level of revenue and the most people that you can reach out to? And, because and I understand this way of thinking, but if you can, you must, is kind of the thought. The problem for me is I can do so much shit. Like, I can do a lot of things. You probably can do a lot of things, like too many things. Must I do them all as big as I can? Like, obviously not. Do I have to pick one and grow it the biggest it can be? Is that the best way to have the biggest impact? It depends on how you measure impact. Different people care about different measurements. Like, I probably never want to coach people who have gotten their own like self-awareness and personal development. If we were going to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, which I'm going to acknowledge is a terrible way to rate it, and there's no way to do that, but say they're at a 7, I don't want to help 7s become 9s. I want to help 2s become 6s. And that's where I've always resonated. People who are down in the dumps, people who feel alone, people who are outcasted. And so for me, entrepreneurship or building a business is about being really ethical, doing really good work, even if it means less clients, even if it means less revenue, and allowing me the freedom to help people with my time, with my money. Like, I just want to be able to freely give that as much as I can. To me, that's what it's all about. To other people, like, we're in a mastermind of dudes who are entrepreneurs, and the CEO of that company's goal is to literally help as many men as possible, which I think is equally as admirable. It's literally changed my life. So of course I am grateful for it. And the dude is like singularly focused on that, and that's who he is. I'm a little different, right? So I approach it from a different perspective. I like helping 3 people at a time move like a lot. And then actually one of my good friends called me, people flip houses. She said I flip people. That was like how she described me. And I was with 2 other of my friends, funny enough, all girls. And I've like, this sounds weird to say out loud, but I feel like I've like helped flip a lot of girls, or at least help them heal in their relationship with men, mostly in a friendship capacity, sometimes in a romantic capacity. And I love doing that. And on the other side, you have an awesome friend, which is the cool thing. But I just like being able to hold that space. And so for me, that's all any professional thing is for me, is the capacity to grow, learn, and do that. That's what matters to me. And so that's a way different approach than a lot of people who are trying to hustle their way to like a top 1% lifestyle. You know, I like making money too, but to me, time is the finite resource, and money just helps me influence the way I and other people around me experience that time. And I guess my threshold of how much work I want to put into making this much more versus whatever is at a different point than most entrepreneurs. I'm going in for like a kind of a different angle or hustle.
Man, that's amazing, man. What would you say excites you the most, man, about where you're at in life now and where you're headed, man? Like when you wake up, man, what gets you excited? What energizes you? Where are you excited to take this journey, man? Because like you said, it's all about the journey, man. That top of the mountain's so short, man. So you got to enjoy the journey. What's the most exciting part about where you are today and the thing you're most excited about of your journey and your ability to be able to, like you said, grow, help people, and make an impact?
Yeah. I think what I'm most excited about right now is I went through that major, like chaotic life transition where everything blew up and I like started from scratch. About 8 months ago, I did another like kind of smaller version of that, but it was pretty big. And it was about 8 months of just chaos and discomfort. And now I feel like I have a bit more of a foundation. I've gained clarity on where I want to go in my professional, personal, to some of these other places. And honestly, I just like being there. Like while I'm there, I'm like, cool, this is great. I feel like I know where I want to go. I could build something that I want to have. And I wake up each day excited about the random person that I'm going to smile at and that's going to smile back at me that I'm going to have a conversation with. I really like being known in my community. That's a big thing for me. And so whether it's, the same person at Chipotle, I went to Chipotle a lot back before I traveled. I was not eating as many vegetables and I was there like every day. Or the 6 people at the gym that I say what's up to that become friends, which I've made lifelong friends just from hey, what's up at the gym, or for whatever. And like what gets me excited is that you don't really know where those people are at in their life or what they need. But just by pure numbers game, you might be able to be like a big part of a chapter. Sometimes you might be a whole chapter. And that's really cool. Like to me, my biggest passion is people. And so I'm most excited to be where I'm at right now, where like things have kind of settled. I'm less erratic and volatile emotionally, which I had been for the last couple of months. And so I can give a little bit more now, which I just love doing. I love being a little bit more stable so I can give. But I had to have that chaotic period where I was up and down and feeling uncomfortable and sad and anxious, and then working through that in like new ways. And the last couple of fronts I couldn't get to. So that's what I'm most excited about. It's not like my business in general. I mean, I've got some cool ideas for things I want to do in 2021. I've got some music stuff. I love comedy. So like most of what I do on my Instagram, which is where I mostly engage with the world, I guess, is say like cheesy motivational shit, like you've probably heard me say on this, or make really stupid jokes, because Instagram for me is all about helping people realize that you don't have to take things so seriously. So I laugh at myself and share really ridiculous things, a lot of ridiculous dating stories. I have a million, like the craziest dating stories you've ever heard in your life. And so I like to kind of break that up on my Instagram and share that stuff. And that might turn into something someday where I'm like regularly creating content intentionally, whether it be some sort of comedy thing or some sort of podcast or, something like that. I've toyed with those ideas a lot and gotten a lot of feedback for that. I'm not ready yet, because if I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that thing. But I'm excited that I finally entered the place where I'm like, I could see that happening in 6 months. Because I like creating. I'm like a creative, my favorite part about business is the problem solving, because I think that's like artistic for me. It's like super fun to like have a problem that like has no solution and be like, no, I'll find one. I'll find one. And that's what I did a lot for the tech company I helped grow. But yeah, so that's what's got me excited about life. And I hope that everyone on this freaking thing that's listening right now, like engage, because if you feel like you didn't have that community that I mentioned, I literally be, what was the third thing that started with a C? Confidant?
Yeah, the third one, confidant. Yeah.
I'll be your confidant. You literally are hearing this right now and you don't believe me, but I can't tell you how many random people have messaged me on Instagram. We're like legit friends now.
Man.
So I hope if anyone on here is like, I have no confidence, just feel it out. Just check me out, feel it out, and shoot, maybe we'll be confidants for each other even. Who knows? Like, that would be sweet. I'd be super stoked by that. Hopefully people hear the sincerity when I say this. It's not just, don't even follow me if you don't want to. I don't give a shit about followers, dude. I have no personal brand, and I am not on Instagram flexing. That's for sure. I'm mostly on there making myself look stupid. So,
dude, man, there's so much there, man. I think just the sentiment to this podcast is, man, like how real you are and just how genuine, man. And just, it does come across, man. It does, very much come across, your authenticity, your realness, and you're also your compassion, man. So, going off that, man, and again, I love to see where you're at today, having known you for this short period of time and where you're headed, man. It's very, very exciting for me to be a part of too. And I'm sure for a lot of listeners, but man, to kind of wrap up the tone of this amazing podcast, what is one thing, man, to leave the listeners with that you could give them as a piece of advice, something that's really stuck out for you in your life to leave with them, man? What would that be?
Allow yourself to believe that you are and will be okay. It's really damn scary because, like, I was the biggest culprit of this ever. When I was worried, I felt like I was doing something to fix the solution. And so if I felt bad because the situation wasn't what I wanted it to be, I kind of felt like I was doing something, and then that feeling became safe, and I low-key became addicted to it, like subconsciously. If you can try and let yourself, even if it feels like you're lying to yourself, believe that you can and are and will be okay, or maybe not even you are, but you can be okay, and like actually believe it, like, and then live that in one decision, just one decision today, and then one tomorrow, and then you've done 2 days in a row, and then maybe that can be 2 decisions. You will slowly start to allow yourself to be the person you always have been, under the layer of shit, and the person that you ultimately want to be, which you are for the most part. You just have shit piled on top of it. But you probably aren't letting yourself believe that that can happen. It's probably easier to believe the excuse. I can't tell you how big of a culprit I was, dude. I had like no friends ever. Like, the one thing about hopping from pen to pen is people don't like that shit. I literally had like no close friends, and people thought I had all my shit together. One of the big reasons why I constantly share my biggest falls, like being fired by 2 churches for sexual sin, or like, and that's a crazy story, or literally spent all my money, like literally all of it, on courses this last year after quitting my job. That seems like a pretty big blunder. Like, yeah, because everyone's dealing with that shit. Like, it's not just you. And so allow yourself to be like, yeah, I'm going to be okay. It's okay to be where I am. And I don't have to beat myself up for it. Once you stop making things harder for yourself, you're going to realize things are a lot less hard. It's like probably mostly you making it hard on yourself. Obviously, external forces are there. Like, things are difficult. Other people do try to put other people down. That's like real shit. But it's pretty small compared to probably what you're doing to yourself. And that does not mean that is easy advice to follow. It's, you got to take it in steps. And when you fucking fall down, you don't have to go back to the finish line. All you have to do is stand back up and keep going. So that's my biggest piece of advice. If you can do that for yourself, and if you can find one person, and if you don't have one, it's me. Seriously, it is. And if you don't take, if it's not me and it's no one, you're beating yourself. You're doing what I just told you to stop doing. So there you go.
And now there's no excuse, man, because Jake said he will be that person for you, man. He will be that confidant. If you need somebody in your life, man, and I can tell, like, he's coming from a place of genuine love, man. So, dude, this has been amazing, man. One of my favorite conversations we've had on here before. I'm excited to have you on here in, 2 years' time again, and talk about just so much more, man. Or even if it's before that, man. I'm just excited to be, aligned with you, as a brother, man. And I appreciate you hopping on here, man. Where can people find you, bro? Online, in person, wherever it is.
Good luck finding me in person.
You'll be all over.
My friends and family hardly even know. People keep asking, where are you going to be after however many months you're in Medellin? I'm like, dude, like, are you asking me that? And they're like, you're right. No one has any idea, not even you. I'm like, it's a good point. So in person, like, I'm in Colombia right now. So come roll through if you want. Online, I pretty much only do shit on my Instagram, which is at Cabbage Tatch Kid, like Cabbage Patch Kid, but my last name's Tacher. So that's CABBAGE Cabbage TACH Kid. And I'm the dude with the same headshot that's on this podcast.
Yes,
me.
sir. Oh man, well, dude, I'm so grateful for your time, Jake, man. Like, this has been awesome, guys. So yeah, go check Jake out, man. Hit him up if you need a confidant, man. If you need somebody in your life, man. And thank you again, brother. We're out.
A blast.
Thank you guys so much for making it to the end. I really appreciate your support, not only for me, not only for Powerful One, but also all the guests on this platform, and just tuning in and being inspired and being powerful, man. So, thank you again if you watch this, and, excited for the future. Excited. It's been a great year for Powerful One. Excited for everything I have coming in the future, everything with the brand, everything with my personal brand, and just everything in general. So just want to thank you guys again, and be sure to, share this if it inspired you, if it felt powerful, if you connected with it, share it with your friends, share the platform. Please go, if you don't mind, go subscribe on YouTube, go write a review on iTunes. All that stuff really means a lot. Thank you guys again, and be sure to stay tuned, because every week we're coming out with a new podcast episode. Stay locked into the page, guys. Thank you. Stay powerful.